The champagne glass slipped from my trembling fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the country club ballroom. Every head turned toward me, including hers. Madison Clearwater stood there in her designer gown, that same smug smile she'd worn since high school, surrounded by our former classmates who hung on her every word like she was royalty. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. "Oh, clumsy as always, aren't we, Harper?" she said loud enough for everyone to hear. Some things never change. But what Madison didn't know was that everything was about to change. The man walking through those gilded doors behind her wasn't just anyone, he was mine. 3 months earlier, I was stocking shelves at Morrison's department store in downtown Seattle, my college degree in marketing gathering dust while I struggled to pay rent on my tiny studio apartment. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was folding clothes I could never afford while watching women my age walk by in outfits that cost more than my monthly salary. Madison had made sure everyone knew about my situation. Social media was her weapon of choice, posting photos of her corner office at her father's real estate empire while tagging our mutual friends. The comments always stung the worst. "Remember when Harper thought she'd be running her own company by now?" Followed by laughing emojis. My phone buzzed during my lunch break that Tuesday. Another post. This time it was Madison at some charity gala, arm in arm with Derek Williamson, the guy I'd dated briefly in college before he decided I wasn't ambitious enough for his political aspirations. The caption read, "Sometimes the universe just knows who belongs together. #power couple. #destiny finds a way." I was about to close the app when I accidentally bumped into someone walking past the employee break room. My phone went flying, along with my half-eaten sandwich. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, scrambling to collect my things. A perfectly polished Italian leather shoe appeared in my line of vision, followed by a hand extending my phone back to me. When I looked up, I found myself staring into the most intense gray eyes I'd ever seen. The man was tall, probably in his early 30s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and there was something about the way he carried himself that screamed success. "No harm done," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "Though I have to ask, what's got you looking so defeated? Bad news?" I felt heat rise to my cheeks. Here was this obviously wealthy, attractive man, and I was sitting on the floor of a department store break room, looking like I'd lost my best friend. "Just social media," I muttered, accepting his help getting to my feet. "You know how it is." "Actually, I don't," he said with a slight smile. "I make it a point to stay off those platforms. Too much noise, not enough substance." Something about his honesty made me relax slightly. Smart policy. I should probably do the same. "I'm Nathan, by the way, Nathan Crawford." He extended his hand, and I noticed he wasn't wearing a wedding ring. "Harper Reynolds." His handshake was firm, confident. "Well, Harper Reynolds, I hope your day gets better. And for what it's worth, whatever's happening on social media probably says more about the people posting than it does about you." Before I could respond, he was gone, leaving me standing there, wondering if I'd imagined the entire encounter. It wasn't until I got back to work that I realized he'd been shopping in the men's luxury section, the department where a single tie cost more than I made in a week. That evening, I was closing up the store when I saw him again. This time, he was waiting by the employee exit, leaning against a black Tesla that looked like it had just rolled off the showroom floor. "Harper," he called out as I emerged from the building. "I hope you don't mind, but I wanted to apologize." "Apologize for what?" "For not asking if you wanted to grab coffee earlier. I realized after I left that I might have missed an opportunity to get to know someone interesting." I stared at him, certain this was some kind of mistake. Men like Nathan Crawford didn't ask out department store clerks. "Are you sure you have the right person?" His laugh was genuine, reaching his eyes. "Pretty sure. Unless there's another Harper Reynolds around here who has the most expressive brown eyes I've ever seen and looks at the world like she's figuring out how to change it." My heart did something strange in my chest. I'm not really changing anything, I'm just trying to survive. Sometimes those are the same thing. He opened the passenger door of his car. "Coffee? I know a place." Quote, Against every logical thought in my head, I got in the car. The coffee shop he took me to wasn't Starbucks. It was a small, intimate place called Meridian Cafe in the upscale Belltown neighborhood, where the barista knew Nathan by name, and the menu had prices that made me quietly grateful he was paying. "So," Nathan said once we were seated in a corner booth, "tell me about Harper Reynolds. What's the story?" "There's not much to tell," I said, wrapping my hands around my latte. "Marketing degree I'm not using, job I'm overqualified for, student loans that seem to multiply overnight. Pretty standard millennial tragedy." What would you be doing if money wasn't an issue? The question caught me off guard. Most people asked what I wanted to do, but Nathan was asking what I would do, as if it were actually possible. "I'd start my own marketing consulting firm," I heard myself saying. "Small businesses mostly. Places that have great products or services but don't know how to tell their story. I see so many amazing local companies struggling because they can't compete with big corporations' marketing budgets." Nathan leaned forward, genuinely interested. "What's stopping you?" "Reality," I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Startup costs, no connections, no track record. And let's be honest, I can barely afford my rent. I'm not exactly venture capital material." "You might be surprised," he said quietly. We talked for 2 hours. Not once did he check his phone or seem distracted. He asked thoughtful questions about my ideas, my background, my dreams. When I mentioned my college roommate's wedding coming up, the one where Madison would undoubtedly hold court with all our old classmates, he listened without judgment as I explained why I was dreading it. "High school hierarchies are hard to shake," he said. "Some people peak early and spend the rest of their lives trying to recreate that feeling of being on top." "Madison never peaked," I said bitterly. "She just kept climbing while the rest of us figured out that real life is harder than we thought." "Success isn't always what it looks like from the outside," Nathan said. "Trust me on that." When he dropped me off at my apartment building, I felt like Cinderella returning from the ball. The spell was over, and tomorrow I'd go back to being just another retail worker dreaming of something better. "Can I see you again?" he asked as I reached for the door handle. "Nathan, I had a great time, but let's be realistic. We're from completely different worlds. Maybe that's exactly why this could work." He waited until I was safely inside before driving away. I watched from my tiny window as the Tesla disappeared into the Seattle night, certain I'd never see him again. I was wrong. The next morning, there was a delivery at my apartment. A small box with an elegant card attached. Inside was a simple silver bracelet with a small charm shaped like a compass. The card read, "For finding your true north. -N." My phone rang as I was still staring at the gift. "Did you get it?" Nathan's voice was warm, familiar. "Nathan, I can't accept this. It's too much." "It's a compass, Harper. It probably cost less than your coffee yesterday." I looked at the bracelet again. It was beautiful, but understated. Not flashy or obviously expensive. "There's something I need to tell you," I said, my conscience getting the better of me. "I looked you up last night." There was a pause. "And?" "Crawford Industries. Nathan Crawford, CEO. Net worth estimated at $2.8 billion. My voice got smaller with each word. "You're not just successful, Nathan. You're in a completely different stratosphere." "Does that change anything about who I am?" "It changes everything about who I am in comparison." Harper listened to me. "Yesterday, when we talked, did I seem like a different person than I do right now?" A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now back to where we left off. "Then nothing has changed. I'm still the guy who spilled your lunch and wanted to make it up to you. The money, it's just numbers on a screen. It doesn't define who I am any more than your job defines who you are." But as I hung up the phone, I knew he was wrong. Money didn't define who he was, but it absolutely defined the world he lived in. And I had no idea how to navigate that world, or if I even belonged in it. The weeks that followed blurred together in a way I'd never experienced before. Nathan didn't overwhelm me with expensive gifts or flashy gestures. Instead, he showed up in small, meaningful ways that gradually dismantled every wall I'd built around my heart. He'd appear at Morrison's during my lunch breaks with sandwiches from a local deli, not because I couldn't afford to eat, but because he'd noticed I often skipped meals when the store got busy. When I mentioned loving old movies, he didn't whisk me away to some premiere. He showed up at my apartment with a projector and classic films I'd never seen, transforming my blank wall into our private cinema. "Where did you even get this?" I asked one evening as he set up equipment that looked more sophisticated than most theaters. "I have my ways," he said with that mysterious smile I was learning to love. Tonight's feature, Roman Holiday, Audrey Hepburn, and Gregory Peck. I've never seen it. Perfect. First viewings are the best viewings. As we watched the story of a princess who escapes her royal duties for one day of freedom with a commoner, I couldn't help but see the parallels. Except in our version, I was the commoner, and Nathan was the one living in a different world entirely. "Do you ever feel trapped by it?" I asked during a quiet scene. "Your life, I mean. The expectations, the responsibility." Nathan was quiet for so long I thought he hadn't heard me. "Every day," he finally said. "Until recently." The way he looked at me when he said it made my chest tight with something between hope and terror. But the outside world had a way of intruding on our bubble. My coworker Jessica cornered me during inventory one Thursday morning, her eyes bright with gossip. "Okay, spill," she demanded, blocking my path between the clothing racks. "Who's the mystery man who's been picking you up after work? Someone who's made it her mission to remind me of my place in the world since we were 16. And what place is that? Second best. Always second best." The words came out more bitter than I'd intended. Madison was valedictorian. I was salutatorian. She got into Harvard. I got into University of Washington. She's running her father's empire. I'm folding clothes. She dates future politicians. I date. I gestured vaguely at him. "You date what?" "People who are way too good for me." Nathan set down his wine glass with more force than necessary. "Harper, look at me." I met his eyes reluctantly. "I need you to understand something. In the past month, you've changed my life in ways I didn't think were possible. You see things differently than anyone I've ever met. You care about people, about making a difference. You have ideas that could revolutionize entire industries. And you think you're not good enough? Nathan, you don't understand. Tomorrow morning, you'll go back to board meetings and private jets and charity galas with women who look like they belong on magazine covers. I'll go back to retail work and student loan payments and an apartment where the neighbors fight loud enough to wake the dead. What if I told you none of that matters to me? Then I'd say you're living in a fantasy." Nathan pulled out his phone and scrolled through something before turning the screen toward me. It was an article from Forbes, dated just 3 days ago. Seattle tech mogul Nathan Crawford spotted with mystery woman. Who is she? The photo was of us leaving the coffee shop where we'd had our first real conversation. I looked completely ordinary next to him, but he was looking at me like I was the most important person in the world. "This came out Tuesday," he said. "By Wednesday morning, I had 17 calls from friends, business associates, and family members wanting to know who you were. You know what I told them?" I shook my head. "I told them you were the woman I was falling in love with." The restaurant noise faded to background hum. "Nathan, I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But I also know that before I met you, I went through the motions of living without actually feeling alive. I attended events because I was supposed to. I dated women because they looked good in photos and knew how to navigate my world. But none of them made me want to be better. None of them challenged me or inspired me or made me laugh until my sides hurt." Quote. He reached across the table and took my hand. "You do all of that and more. But what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize that I don't know which fork to use at fancy dinners or how to small talk with senators' wives? Then I'll teach you, if you want to learn. Or we'll avoid fancy dinners entirely. Harper, I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking you to let me be part of your life." Before I could respond, a familiar voice cut through our intimate moment like a blade. Well, if it isn't little Harper Reynolds." Madison stood beside our table in a designer coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Behind her stood Derek Williamson, looking uncomfortable but trying to project his usual political confidence. "Madison," I managed, my voice barely steady. What a surprise. Isn't it just? Her eyes moved to Nathan, and I watched her expression shift as recognition dawned. And you must be the famous Nathan Crawford. I've heard so much about you. Nathan stood politely, extending his hand. I don't believe we've met. Madison Clearwater. Clearwater Properties? My father handles quite a bit of commercial real estate in the area. I'm sure our paths will cross professionally soon. She turned that razor smile back to me. Harper, darling, I had no idea you were moving in such elevated circles these days. How ambitious of you. The word ambitious dripped with implication, and I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation. Harper's the most genuine person I've ever met, Nathan said quietly, his voice carrying an edge of warning. Oh, I'm sure she is, Madison replied sweetly. Harper's always been so authentic, so real, so refreshingly unpolished. Each compliment was a perfectly aimed insult, and we all knew it. Derek finally spoke up, clearly wanting to end the encounter. We should get to our table, Madison, our reservation. Of course. Madison's smile widened. Harper, you simply must come to my engagement party next month. Derek finally proposed. She flashed a diamond ring the size of a small planet. It's going to be quite the event. All our old crowd will be there. I'm sure they'd love to meet your friend. The invitation was clearly a trap, but before I could decline, Nathan spoke. We'd be delighted to attend, he said smoothly. Thank you for thinking of us. Madison's mask slipped for just a second, surprise flickering across her features. She'd expected me to make an excuse, to avoid the humiliation of showing up where I clearly didn't belong. Wonderful, she recovered quickly. I'll send you the details. It's at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, black tie, of course. After they left, I stared at Nathan in horror. Why did you do that? You have no idea what you just signed us up for. I signed us up for an opportunity, he said calmly, settling back into his chair. An opportunity for what? Public humiliation? Nathan's smile was different now. Harder, more calculated. For the first time, I caught a glimpse of the ruthless businessman he must be in his professional life. An opportunity to show Madison Clearwater and everyone else exactly who Harper Reynolds really is. The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation that felt like being caught in someone else's life. Nathan had insisted we attend Madison's engagement party, but what I hadn't expected was how seriously he took the event, or how much it would change everything between us. I can't wear this, I protested, staring at the garment bag he'd brought to my apartment. Inside was a stunning midnight blue gown that looked like it belonged on a red carpet, not on someone who spent her days reorganizing clearance racks. Why not? Nathan asked, genuinely confused. He was sitting on my tiny couch, looking perfectly at ease despite the fact that his watch probably cost more than my entire apartment's contents. Because it's not me. Because I'll look like I'm playing dress-up. Because everyone will know I don't belong there. Nathan stood and walked over to where I was still staring at the dress like it might bite me. What if I told you I had an ulterior motive for wanting you to wear it? I'd say that makes me even more nervous. He laughed, pulling me closer. Harper, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? The way he looked at me when he asked made it impossible to say no, but that didn't stop the anxiety from eating away at my confidence as the party approached. 2 days before the event, Nathan disappeared on what he called business meetings. He'd been vague about the details, which wasn't unusual. I'd learned that his work often involved confidential negotiations and deals, but this time felt different. He seemed energized, almost excited about something he couldn't share. I'll see you Friday night, he said, kissing me goodbye outside Morrison's after walking me to work. And Harper? Everything's going to change after this party, I promise. That promise should have reassured me. Instead, it kept me awake for the next 2 nights, wondering what he meant. Friday evening arrived like an execution date. I'd taken the day off work, spending hours getting ready with the help of a stylist Nathan had insisted on hiring. The woman, Vivian, was a miracle worker who somehow transformed my department store existence into something that looked like it belonged in Nathan's world. You look stunning, she said as she put the finishing touches on my makeup. But more importantly, you look like yourself. Enhanced, not changed. The dress fit perfectly, hugging my curves in ways that made me feel elegant rather than exposed. The midnight blue brought out my eyes, and the subtle beating caught the light without being ostentatious. Vivian had styled my hair in an updo that looked effortless but sophisticated, with a few loose strands framing my face. When Nathan picked me up, the expression on his face made all the anxiety worth it. "You're beautiful," he said simply, but the way he said it made me believe him. "You clean up pretty well yourself," I replied, taking in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. He looked like he'd stepped out of a movie, powerful, confident, and undeniably handsome. The drive to the Fairmont Olympic Hotel was quiet. Nathan seemed focused, almost businesslike, which only added to my nerves. When we pulled up to the valet stand, I saw the other guests arriving, and immediately felt out of place again. These were Seattle's elite people I'd only seen in newspaper society pages. "Ready?" Nathan asked, offering me his arm. "No, but let's do this anyway." The ballroom was exactly what I'd expected from Madison. Over the top, elegant, with crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, and enough gold accents to fund a small country. She'd positioned herself near the entrance, like a queen holding court, accepting congratulations and admiration in a wedding dress that was clearly a preview of things to come. "Harper," she exclaimed when she saw us, her voice carrying just far enough for nearby conversations to pause. "You made it! And you look so different." The backhanded compliment hung in the air like a challenge. I felt myself shrinking despite the beautiful dress, despite Nathan's steady presence beside me. "Madison, congratulations," I managed. "The party is beautiful." "Isn't it?" Daddy spared no expense. Though I suppose when you're celebrating finding your perfect match, cost becomes irrelevant. Her eyes flicked to Nathan with obvious interest. "Mr. Crawford, thank you so much for coming. I was afraid Harper might have exaggerated your friendship." "Not at all," Nathan replied smoothly. "Harper means everything to me." Something in his tone made Madison's smile falter slightly, but she recovered quickly. "How lovely. You simply must meet Derek's father, Senator Williamson. He's very interested in tech investments." As she led us deeper into the party, I caught fragments of conversations that made my stomach churn. People speculating about who I was, questioning what someone like Nathan Crawford was doing with that girl from the department store. The whispers followed us like shadows. "Ignore them," Nathan murmured in my ear as we approached the bar. "They don't matter." But they did matter, at least to me. These were the people Nathan socialized with, the world he lived in, and I was clearly an outsider looking in. Derek appeared beside us, looking nervous. "Nathan, great to see you again." "Harper." He nodded politely in my direction. "Can I steal you for a moment? There are some people I'd like you to meet." Nathan squeezed my hand. "I'll be right back." Left alone at the bar, I ordered a champagne I didn't really want and tried to blend into the background. That's when I overheard the conversation that would haunt me for the rest of the evening. "She's pretty enough, I suppose," one woman was saying to her companion, both of them glancing in my direction. But really, what could Nathan Crawford possibly see in a shop girl? "It's obvious, isn't it?" the second woman replied with a laugh. "Men like him go through phases. The charity case, the exotic dancer, the struggling artist, she's just this year's project. Poor thing, probably thinks it's real, they always do." "Well, she'll figure it out soon enough. Men like Nathan always end up with their own kind. It's just biology." My champagne glass trembled in my hand. Every insecurity I'd buried, every doubt I'd pushed aside came rushing back with crushing force. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just Nathan's current charitable cause, his walk on the wild side before he settled down with someone appropriate. I was so lost in my spiraling thoughts that I didn't notice Madison approaching until she was right beside me. "Having fun?" she asked sweetly, though her eyes were cold. "It's a lovely party," I said automatically. "It really is. You know, Harper, I have to admit I'm impressed. Landing Nathan Crawford? That takes real skill." "It's not like that." "Oh, please, we both know exactly what this is." Madison's voice dropped to a whisper that only I could hear. "You're a novelty. A fun distraction from his real life." But eventually reality sets in. Men like Nathan don't marry down, Harper. They marry strategically. They marry people who can help their careers, enhance their image, move in their circles without embarrassing them. Each word was a perfectly aimed arrow, hitting every vulnerable spot I'd tried to protect. "You're wrong," I said weakly. "Am I? Then where is he now? Why isn't he by your side, protecting you from conversations like this one?" Madison glanced around the room until she spotted Nathan deep in conversation with a group of serious-looking men. "He's networking, Harper, because that's what people like him do at events like this. They use every opportunity to advance their interests." "That's not—" "Look around," Madison continued relentlessly. "Look at the women here. Really look at them. Do you see any other shop girls? Any other project girlfriends? Or do you see wives and daughters of senators, CEOs, judges, women who belong in this world?" I didn't want to look, but I couldn't help myself. She was right. Every woman in the room looked like they'd been born to this life. They moved with confidence, spoke with authority, wore their expensive clothes like they were natural extensions of themselves. "You'll always be second best, Harper," Madison said softly, driving home the point that had defined our entire relationship. And deep down, Nathan knows it too. The question is, how long before he admits it? Before I could respond, the lights dimmed and Derek's voice came over the microphone, calling for everyone's attention. Madison gave me one last triumphant look, before gliding away to join her fiancé on the small stage that had been set up for speeches. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Derek began, his politician smile bright under the spotlights. "Madison and I are overwhelmed by the love and support you've shown us." The speech continued, but I wasn't listening. I was too busy trying not to fall apart in public, trying to figure out how to gracefully exit before I embarrassed Nathan any further. That's when I felt a warm hand on my shoulder. Nathan had returned, but something was different about his expression. Gone was the casual confidence I'd grown used to. In its place was something harder, more determined. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, studying my face with concern. "I'm fine," I lied. "Derek's giving a lovely speech." Nathan's eyes swept the room, taking in the clusters of people who were watching us rather than listening to the stage. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "No," he said quietly. "You're not fine, and I think it's time we fixed that." Before I could ask what he meant, Nathan was leading me toward the stage where Derek was wrapping up his remarks. My heart started pounding as I realized what he intended to do. "Nathan, what are you?" "Trust me," he said simply. Derek finished his speech to polite applause, and as he started to step away from the microphone, Nathan approached the stage. The two men exchanged a few quiet words, and Derek's eyebrows rose in surprise before he nodded and handed over the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," Nathan's voice carried clearly through the sound system, instantly commanding the attention of everyone in the room. "I hope you'll indulge me for just a moment." My legs felt like they might give out. Every eye in the ballroom was now focused on us, and I had no idea what Nathan was planning to say. The ballroom fell silent except for the soft clink of champagne glasses and the rustle of expensive fabric as everyone turned to face the stage. Nathan stood there with the confidence of a man who commanded boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, but when he looked at me, his expression was softer than I'd ever seen it. 3 months ago, Nathan began, his voice carrying clearly through the sound system, I thought I knew what my life was supposed to look like. I had plans, expectations, a very clear path laid out before me. I could feel Madison's eyes boring into me from across the room, her perfect smile frozen in place as she tried to figure out where this was going. "Then I met someone who changed everything," Nathan continued. "Someone who showed me that all my careful plans were just elaborate ways of avoiding actually living." My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Nathan's eyes found mine across the crowd, and he smiled that private smile I'd thought was just for quiet moments between us. "Harper Reynolds," he said, and hearing my name echo through the ballroom made everything feel surreal. "Would you come up here, please?" The crowd murmured with curiosity as a spotlight found me. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, but Nathan's encouraging nod gave me the strength to move forward. Each step toward the stage felt like walking through molasses, with hundreds of eyes tracking my movement. Nathan helped me up the steps, his hand steady and warm in mine. Being on the stage with all those faces looking up at us was terrifying, but Nathan's presence beside me made it bearable. "Harper," Nathan said into the microphone, but his words were directed at me. "3 months ago, you asked me if I ever felt trapped by my life. The truth is, I did. Every day. I was going through the motions of being successful without ever feeling truly alive." He turned to address the crowd but kept hold of my hand. "Many of you know me as a businessman, an investor, someone who builds companies and makes deals. But Harper knows me as something else entirely. She knows me as the man who was lost until she found him." The murmur from the crowd grew louder, speculation rippling through the ballroom like waves. "You see," Nathan continued, his voice growing stronger, "Harper has this incredible ability to see potential where others see problems. She looks at struggling small businesses and sees opportunities for growth. She looks at forgotten neighborhoods and sees communities waiting to be revitalized. She looked at me and saw someone worth saving." I squeezed his hand, overwhelmed by his words but still confused about where this was leading. Over the past 3 weeks, while Harper thought I was attending boring business meetings, I was actually working on something much more important. Something that required calling in every favor, reaching out to every contact, and using every resource at my disposal. Nathan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. "Harper, you told me your dream was to start your own marketing consulting firm. You said you wanted to help small businesses tell their stories, to level the playing field between local companies and big corporations." He handed me the document with shaking hands. I unfolded it slowly, trying to read the legal text while standing under the spotlight with hundreds of people watching. "What is this?" I whispered. "It's the incorporation papers for Reynolds Marketing Solutions," Nathan said into the microphone. "Your company. Fully funded, fully staffed, with offices in downtown Seattle and contracts already lined up with 12 local businesses who desperately need your expertise." The room spun around me. "Nathan, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I believe in you. I'm saying your dreams matter. I'm saying that you're not second best to anyone. You're first in everything that truly counts." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. I could see Madison's face in the front row, her expression shifting from confusion to something that looked like panic. "But that's not all," Nathan continued. He dropped to one knee right there on the stage, pulling out a ring box that caught the light from the chandeliers above. The collective gasp from the audience was audible. Someone in the back actually dropped their champagne glass. "Harper Reynolds," Nathan said, his voice carrying all the authority of a man who'd never doubted anything in his life. "You are brilliant, compassionate, determined, and real in a world full of artificial things. You challenge me to be better. You make me want to use my resources for something meaningful, instead of just accumulating more wealth." Tears were streaming down my face now, and I didn't care who saw them. "I love your ambition, your kindness, your terrible jokes, and the way you see the world as something that can be improved rather than just endured. I love that you call me out when I'm being elitist, and I love that you've never once asked me for anything except my time and attention." He opened the ring box, revealing a stunning but elegant diamond that caught the light without being ostentatious. "Will you marry me? Will you build this life with me? Will you let me spend the rest of my days proving that you were never second best to anyone?" The silence in the ballroom was deafening. I looked out at the crowd and saw a mix of expressions: shock, admiration, envy, and in Madison's case, barely concealed fury. "Yes," I whispered, then louder, "Yes." The room erupted in applause as Nathan slipped the ring onto my finger and stood to kiss me. It was the kind of kiss that made you forget where you were, who was watching, and why any of it mattered. When we finally broke apart, Nathan took the microphone one last time. "I have one more announcement to make," he said, his arm around my waist. "Starting Monday, Crawford Industries will be launching a new initiative, the Reynolds Small Business Development Program. We'll be providing funding, mentorship, and marketing support to locally owned businesses throughout the Pacific Northwest." He looked down at me with pride shining in his eyes. "And it will be run by my brilliant fiancée, Harper Reynolds Crawford." The applause was thunderous now. People were actually standing, giving us an ovation that felt like validation of everything we'd been through. As we made our way off the stage, I caught sight of Madison's face. The mask of perfection had completely slipped, revealing something raw and ugly underneath. She looked like a woman who'd just watched her entire worldview crumble. Derek appeared at her side, trying to salvage the evening. "Well," he said, grabbing the microphone with forced enthusiasm. "What an unexpected surprise. Let's hear it one more time for the happy couple." But the crowd was already moving toward us, wanting to congratulate Nathan and meet his mysterious fiancée. For the first time in my life, I was the center of attention for something positive, something I'd actually accomplished. "How does it feel?" Nathan murmured in my ear as we were surrounded by well-wishers. "Terrifying, amazing, completely surreal," I replied honestly. "Good. That means you're really living." An older woman I recognized as the wife of a prominent judge approached us with a warm smile. "My dear," she said to me, "I've been watching you all evening, and I have to say, you handle yourself with remarkable grace. Nathan is a very lucky man." "I think I'm the lucky one," I replied, and for the first time, I actually meant it. As the evening wound down, Madison finally approached us. Her smile was back in place, but it looked brittle, like it might shatter at any moment. "Congratulations," she said through gritted teeth. "What a surprise!" "Thank you," Nathan replied politely. "Harper and I are very excited about the future." "I'm sure you are." Madison's eyes met mine, and I saw something I'd never seen there before. Defeat. "Harper, I hope you'll be very happy." There was no sarcasm in her voice, no hidden barb. For the first time since high school, Madison Clearwater was speaking to me without trying to tear me down. It was almost more shocking than Nathan's proposal. "Thank you, Madison," I said sincerely. "I hope you and Derek will be happy too." As we finally left the party, walking hand in hand through the hotel lobby, I caught our reflection in the mirrored walls. We looked like we belonged together. Not because we matched in some superficial way, but because we fit. We complemented each other. "No regrets?" Nathan asked as we waited for the valet to bring his car around. "About saying yes? Never." I looked down at the ring sparkling on my finger. "About everything else? We'll figure it out as we go." "That's all anyone can do," Nathan said, pulling me close. "But we'll figure it out together." As we drove away from the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, leaving behind a room full of Seattle's elite, I realized something had fundamentally shifted. I wasn't trying to fit into Nathan's world anymore, and he wasn't trying to rescue me from mine. We were building something new together, something that was entirely ours. For the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about being second best. I was exactly where I belonged. 6 months later, I stood in the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office on the 23rd floor of the Columbia Center, watching the Seattle skyline come alive in the early morning light. The view never got old. Elliott Bay stretching out to the Olympic Mountains, ferries crossing the Sound like purposeful white dots, the city below bustling with the energy of people pursuing their dreams. Reynolds Marketing Solutions had grown faster than anyone had anticipated, including me. What started as Nathan's faith in my abilities had transformed into something neither of us had fully envisioned. We weren't just helping small businesses with their marketing. We were revitalizing entire neighborhoods, creating jobs, and proving that success could be measured in more than just profit margins. "Mrs. Crawford," my assistant Marcus called from the doorway, still getting used to my new name after our wedding 3 weeks ago. "Your 9 o'clock is here. The Rodriguez family from Ballard." "Send them in, and Marcus?" "It's still Harper. The Mrs. Crawford thing makes me feel like Nathan's mother." Marcus grinned. He was 24, fresh out of college, and reminded me so much of myself 6 months ago that I'd hired him on the spot. "Got it, Harper. And congratulations again on the Morrisons news." The Morrisons news. Even thinking about it made me smile. After 6 months of watching my former workplace struggle with declining sales and an outdated image, I'd pitched their corporate headquarters on a complete rebrand. Yesterday, they'd signed a contract that would transform their stores from dated department stores into community shopping centers that showcased local artisans alongside national brands. It was exactly the kind of project I dreamed about during those long days folding clothes. The Rodriguez family filed into my office Maria and Carlos, who owned a struggling restaurant in Ballard, along with their teenage daughter, Sophia. They looked nervous, The way I used to feel walking into spaces where I wasn't sure I belonged. "Please sit down," I said, gesturing to the comfortable seating area I'd had installed instead of a traditional conference table. "Can I get you anything? Coffee, tea, water?" "We're fine, thank you," Maria said, though her husband kept glancing around the office with wide eyes. "This is someplace you've got here," Carlos said. "When Sophia found your company online, we weren't sure, well, we didn't know if you'd want to work with a small family restaurant." "That's exactly who we want to work with," I assured them. "Tell me about your restaurant. What makes it special?" For the next hour, I listened as they shared their story. 3 generations of family recipes, a location that was being gentrified out of their price range, regular customers who were like family, but a younger demographic that didn't know they existed. Their passion was evident in every word, but so was their fear that they might lose everything they'd built. "Here's what I'm thinking," I said, pulling out my tablet to show them a preliminary concept I'd sketched out. "Your restaurant isn't just serving food, it's preserving culture, building community, and creating a gathering place. That's your story, and it's a story people want to be part of." Sophia leaned forward, suddenly animated. "That's exactly what I've been trying to tell them. My friends would totally come if they knew about the music nights and the cooking classes Abuela used to teach." "Cooking classes?" I asked, my mind already spinning with possibilities. "My mother taught traditional Mexican cooking for 40 years, Maria explained. She stopped when she got sick, but the recipes, they're all still here." She tapped her temple. "People used to come from all over the city to learn from her." Quote, 2 hours later, we'd outlined a complete transformation strategy. Weekend cooking classes with Maria's mother-in-law once she was feeling better, live music nights featuring local Latino artists, a social media campaign highlighting the family's immigration story and the American dream, and partnerships with local food bloggers and culinary schools. "How much will this cost?" Carlos asked, the worry lines deepening around his eyes. "Our fee is 20% of your increased revenue over the next year," I explained. "If we don't increase your business, you don't pay us anything. And we'll help you apply for small business grants to cover the startup costs for the cooking classes and music equipment." The relief on their faces was everything I'd hoped to see when I'd first envisioned this company. After they left, I had a video call with Nathan, who was in New York for the week, meeting with potential investors for our expanded program. "How did it go with the Rodriguez family?" he asked, and I could see the Manhattan skyline behind him through his hotel window. "Amazing. I think we can triple their revenue within 6 months, maybe sooner, if the cooking classes take off the way I think they will." "And how are you feeling about the Morrisons' launch?" I grinned, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. "Good, because I have news that might make your day even better." Nathan's smile was the one he got when he was particularly pleased with himself. "The investors here want to fund expansion into Portland, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. They're talking about a $50 million investment to scale the Reynolds Small Business Development Program nationwide." My heart skipped. "Nathan, that's incredible, but you're worried about growing too fast and losing what makes this special." "I know. That's why I told them we'd start with just Portland, see how the model translates to a different city, and then decide about further expansion." This was what I loved most about our partnership, both personal and professional. Nathan understood my vision well enough to protect it, even when bigger opportunities came along. What did they say? They said they've never met an entrepreneur who turned down money to maintain quality, and it made them even more confident in our approach. Our call was interrupted by Marcus knocking on my doorframe. "Harper, you need to see this." He handed me his phone, which was open to a local news website. The headline read, "From Retail Worker to Rising Star, How Harper Crawford is Changing Seattle's Business Landscape." The article featured a photo of me at the Morrisons' announcement event, but what caught my attention was the accompanying interview with someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Madison Clearwater, CEO of Clearwater Properties, had this to say about her former classmate's success. "Harper has always had incredible vision and determination. I'm not surprised to see her making such a significant impact on our city's business community. She's exactly the kind of innovative leader Seattle needs." I stared at the screen, reading the quote twice to make sure I hadn't imagined it. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Something like that," I murmured, still processing Madison's words. There was no sarcasm, no backhanded compliment, just genuine praise from someone who had spent years trying to tear me down. That afternoon, I found myself walking through Pioneer Square during my lunch break, ending up at the same Italian restaurant where Nathan and I had had dinner the night Madison confronted us. It felt like a lifetime ago, though it had only been 6 months. I was lost in thought when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Harper? I turned to find Madison herself, looking polished as always, but somehow softer around the edges. She was alone, which was unusual. I'd grown accustomed to seeing her surrounded by admirers or business associates. Madison, I said, genuinely surprised. Hi. I saw Morrison's announcement in the paper. Congratulations. That's exactly the kind of innovative thinking the retail industry needs. Thank you. I saw your quote in today's article. Madison had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I meant every word. What you've built with Reynolds Marketing Solutions? It's impressive, really impressive. We stood there for a moment in awkward silence before Madison spoke again. Harper, I owe you an apology, several apologies actually. This was definitely not the conversation I'd expected to have today. You don't. Yes, I do, Madison's voice was firm. I spent years trying to make you feel small because I was terrified that you were actually bigger than me, in all the ways that mattered. I saw your potential before you did, and instead of celebrating it, I tried to diminish it. I stared at her, speechless. The night of my engagement party, watching Nathan propose to you, seeing how he looked at you, I realized I'd never had anyone look at me that way. Derek loves me, but he loves what I represent. The connections, the family name, the political advantages. Nathan loves you for who you are, not what you can do for him. Madison, I'm not finished. She took a deep breath. I've been thinking a lot about success lately, about what it actually means. I have everything I thought I wanted, the company, the perfect fiancé, the social status. But you have something I've never had. The knowledge that you earned everything you have. That people respect you for your ideas and your character, not your last name or your father's bank account. The vulnerability in her voice was something I'd never heard before. I don't know if we can ever be friends, Madison continued, but I wanted you to know that I genuinely admire what you've accomplished. And I'm sorry for all the years I made you feel like you weren't enough. You were always enough, Harper. You were always more than enough. Before I could respond, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk trying to process what had just happened. That evening, Nathan found me on the balcony of our new apartment in Belltown, staring out at the water with a glass of wine and a thoughtful expression. Penny for your thoughts, Mrs. Crawford. I leaned back against his chest as he wrapped his arms around me. I ran into Madison today. Oh? How did that go? I told him about the conversation, about her apology and admission. Nathan listened without interrupting, occasionally pressing a kiss to the top of my head. How do you feel about it? He asked when I finished. Confused. Relieved. A little sad, actually. Sad? For all the years we wasted as enemies instead of, well, maybe not friends, but not adversaries either. I think we could have helped each other if we'd gotten past our own insecurities. Nathan turned me around to face him. You can't change the past, but you can choose how to move forward. The question is, what do you want to do with her apology? I thought about it for a long moment. I want to accept it, not because I need her validation anymore, but because holding on to old hurts doesn't serve anyone. That's very wise, Mrs. Crawford. Stop calling me that, I laughed, swatting at him playfully. Never. I like the way it sounds. Quote, 3 weeks later, I was back at Morrison's, but this time as a customer and consultant overseeing the store's transformation. The space was unrecognizable. Gone were the dated displays and harsh fluorescent lighting. In their place were warm, inviting sections that showcased local artisans alongside national brands, community bulletin boards highlighting neighborhood events, and a small cafe that served coffee from a local roaster. Jessica, who had been promoted to assistant manager as part of the renovation, found me admiring the new layout. Can you believe this place? She said, grinning. 6 months ago, we were talking about layoffs. Now we're hiring. It looks amazing, I said honestly. How are the customers responding? Are you kidding? Yesterday, a woman told me this was the first time she'd enjoyed shopping in years. Said it felt like supporting her community instead of just buying stuff. As we talked, I noticed a young woman near the local artisan section, carefully examining handmade jewelry with the focused attention of someone on a tight budget trying to make every purchase count. She looked familiar, and after a moment, I realized why. "Excuse me," I said, approaching her. "Aren't you Sophia, from the Rodriguez family?" Her face lit up with recognition. "Harper, oh my God, hi, I was just telling my friend about you yesterday. How are the cooking classes going?" "Incredible! We had 20 people last Saturday, and half of them made reservations for dinner afterward. Abuela is talking about adding a second class on Sundays." "That's wonderful. Are you finding everything okay here?" Sophia held up a pair of silver earrings. "These are perfect for my quinceañera, but I'm trying to decide between these and saving money for a dress." I smiled, remembering similar calculations from my own lean years. What if I told you that the artist who made those earrings, Elena Vasquez, specifically creates pieces for quinceañeras? She might be willing to work with you on something custom within your budget. Sophia's eyes widened. "Really? You know her?" "She's one of our clients. Her business has grown 400% since we started working with her. Here's her card." As Sophia walked away clutching Elena's business card, Jessica shook her head in amazement. "6 months ago, you were folding sweaters and worrying about rent. Now you're connecting local artists with customers and changing people's lives. How does that feel?" Quote, "I thought about the question as I looked around the transformed store, watching customers discover local products they'd never known existed, seeing community connections form in real time. It feels like I'm finally living the life I was meant to live," I said. That evening, Nathan and I attended the opening night of the Rodriguez family's expanded restaurant, now called Corazon Heart. The space was packed with a diverse crowd that included longtime neighborhood regulars, young professionals who discovered them through social media, and food bloggers documenting every dish. Maria's mother-in-law, Doña Carmen, was in her element teaching a small group how to make proper mole while Carlos played guitar in the background. Sophia moved between tables, effortlessly switching between English and Spanish as she explained the family's story to curious diners. "This is what success looks like," Nathan said, watching a table of strangers bond over shared appetizers and Carlos's stories. "Better than any balance sheet," I agreed. As we walked home through the Seattle streets, past the Space Needle glowing against the night sky, I thought about how much had changed in less than a year. Not just the external circumstances, the ring on my finger, the company I'd built, the apartment we shared, but the fundamental way I saw myself and my place in the world. "Do you ever miss it?" Nathan asked suddenly. "Miss what?" "The simplicity. When we were just two people getting to know each other without all the business partnerships and public expectations." I considered the question seriously. Sometimes. But then I think about the Rodriguez family, and Elena the jewelry artist, and the dozens of other small business owners who are thriving because we took a chance on something bigger than ourselves. I wouldn't trade that impact for anything. Even for a quiet life folding sweaters? Especially not for that. Nathan stopped walking and pulled me into his arms right there on the sidewalk. "Have I mentioned lately that I'm incredibly proud of you?" "Only every day," I laughed, "but I don't mind hearing it again. I'm proud of who you've become, but more than that, I'm proud of who you've always been. The woman who saw potential in struggling businesses is the same woman who saw potential in a lonely billionaire who didn't know how to live." "I love you too," I said, standing on my tiptoes to kiss him. As we continued our walk home, I caught a reflection in a storefront window. Two people who looked completely comfortable in their own skin, who fit together not because they matched, but because they complemented each other perfectly. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Saw the article about Corazon in today's Times. The work you're doing is truly inspiring. Congratulations on building something meaningful. Nash M." I showed the message to Nathan. "Madison?" he asked. "Madison. Are you going to respond?" I thought about it for a moment, then typed back, "Thank you. I hope you're building something meaningful too." Her response came quickly. "Working on it. Learning from the best." As we reached our building, I realized something profound had shifted in my understanding of success. It wasn't about proving I was better than anyone else, or even proving I was good enough. It was about using whatever talents and opportunities I had to make things better for other people. 6 months ago, Madison had told me I'd always be second best. Standing there in the lobby of our building, looking at the reflection of a woman who had built something lasting and meaningful, I realized she'd been wrong about everything. I wasn't first best or second best. I was exactly who I was supposed to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do, with exactly the right person by my side. And that, I thought as Nathan and I rode the elevator up to our home, was the only kind of success that actually mattered. The elevator doors opened, and we stepped into our future together, not as a billionaire and his project, not as a rescue story or a fairy tale, but as two people who had found in each other the courage to become their best selves. Outside our floor-to-ceiling windows, Seattle sparkled with the dreams of countless people pursuing their own definitions of success. And somewhere in that beautiful, chaotic tapestry of ambition and hope, the businesses we'd helped were thriving, the communities we'd strengthened were growing, and the ripple effects of believing in people's potential were spreading further than we'd ever imagined. I was no longer the girl who folded clothes while dreaming of something bigger. I was the woman who turned those dreams into reality, not just for herself, but for everyone brave enough to believe that second best was never good enough. And that sometimes, if you're willing to work for it, you can have everything you've ever wanted and discover it's even better than you imagined. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.